Welcome back to your Kings of Columbus Sunday Sound Off. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis wrapping up Ohio State's win over Michigan State. Landis, you went through the texts from our dedicated, educated, loyal Ohio State tech subscribers. 614-662-4509 if you'd like to participate. Sign up for a 2-week free trial. Vibes good, vibes iffy. What did you think of the vibes from our people?
I think iffy is probably a good way to describe it.
Okay.
A little, I think like last week there was some concern about the defense in the Marshall game and some of the ways that Marshall was able to move the ball. And then that just got ratcheted up more in this game, I think. And I also believe deservedly so with the way that Michigan State was moving the ball in the first half. So there was a lot of that. There were people mostly, I think, happy with the win, right? But I think a little concerned about what's going on with the defense early on in games and some of the stuff that Jim Knowles is doing kind of schematically and personnel wise. But there's a lot of like, that was a decent win. That was a good win. Like Alex said, great dub over a meh football team. No need to stress over the details. Ryan Day will do that for me, which I think is like that's a good place to be, I think, after a 38-7 Big Ten road win.
Yeah. Are we like off the top? Is Michigan State definitely meh? Like, what is Michigan State as we try to put this in context for Ohio State?
I think Michigan State's probably slightly better than meh. Like it has a mistake-prone young quarterback, but good skill, bad offensive line, and like a bad offensive line that was worse on Saturday night because it was playing like its third right guard and a true freshman at left tackle for the first time. So like that part of Michigan State is not particularly impressive, but I think like front seven defense, offensive skill, better than meh.
Yeah, I think better than meh too, and I think particularly like better than meh with some peaks.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's important too. Like there was a kind of like a long out that they completed from Aiden Childs to Nick Marsh, where Davis and Igbinosun had coverage. And I saw there was some frustration with David Igbinosun in this game. And I just thought, like, in that moment, in that play, Aiden Childs to a true freshman receiver and Nick Marsh, that was as good as anything Jalen Milroe would complete to Ryan Williams for Alabama. Like, in moments where it's like, okay, well, I didn't love Ohio State giving up a 23-yard pass on that play, but also it was perfectly executed by two highly skilled players. And I just thought there were moments like that where if you spin it the other way, I would like Ohio State fans to come away on this Sunday making sure they give Michigan State enough credit, because if Michigan State was an SEC team, they'd be in the top 25. Like that's right. Like we already had this conversation on Saturday night on our KOTN show. Like, what SEC team would Michigan State be? But I thought Michigan State in moments was quite good in moments and then made mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that's important to keep in mind, that there was some real talent at places. You know, it's like, hey, oh, well, Jack Velling, he made a play. It's like Jack Velling's been a good college football tight end for 3 years, you know, and like that two-headed monster at running back, like that's pretty good. So I sort of want to lay that baseline down. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with it. I think where the frustration comes in for Ohio State fans, and what I agree with, is that, yes, Michigan State came into this with good players and spots and a good plan to attack Ohio State's defense,
Mm-hmm.
but also that again, it felt like Jim Knowles was like hamstringing his own defense with some of the stuff he was choosing to do, and then which in turn created openings for Michigan State to pop some of the plays that you're talking about, whether that's playing three linebackers as much as he did, or playing off coverage as much as they did, like on that play where Aiden Childs did throw the ball to Nick Marsh. Like Davis Igbinosun's playing 15 yards off of him, right? So, so there's a lot of frustration with that stuff, which is kind of Ohio State got it figured out, right? Like it again shut down a team in the second half, or really like shut down a team after a couple of drives. But I think it is worth keeping those couple of drives in mind, because better teams are coming, and Ohio State's defensive approach at the moment feels a little odd. But yeah, I don't think that was like, it wasn't Ohio State playing the worst team in the Big Ten on Saturday night, right?
Yeah.
Like Michigan State's got a little something to it, and the ability to spike in a way that I think can be pretty dangerous. So in that regard, like maybe the fact that Ohio State did figure out a way to kind of shut that down means a little something, but it doesn't erase the kind of sluggish start again from the defense.
Do you want to talk about plan 3 linebackers off the top
Yeah,
here?
yeah, we can do that. There was a lot of like defense generally, but then more specifically on the linebackers, like Chris just said point blank, the linebackers aren't good, particularly Sonny Styles. There was a text from 615 number says, I don't want to complain too much, but it seems pretty clear that Ohio State isn't getting championship caliber play at defensive tackle, which we can talk about also, or linebacker. It gives me concerns against the nation's best teams. What can be done to improve it throughout the season? So, and then there's like every question like about the defense was kind of like layered with linebacker stuff too. Like, and Ryan asked, does the 3 linebacker look more for Michigan State, or do you think we'll see it a lot going forward? Don't remember us having it that much in a game last year. So there's a lot of consternation about that position at the moment.
Sonny Styles, 42 snaps, led the defense. Cody Simon, 36 snaps. And then the real question, Arvell Reese as a linebacker versus Jordan Hancock as a slot corner, each 19 snaps. So it was basically half and half, 3 linebackers versus 3 safeties or 3 corners or whatever, 5 DBs. Like there's a particular play where Michigan State was running the ball effectively enough early. Ohio State had 3 linebackers in the game. Michigan State max protected, had so many guys blocking that they had like a guard who was searching for somebody to block. 3 linebackers, play action, and the linebackers sucked up, and then they saw it was a pass, and they tried to get back, and then like soft coverage behind it, and Aiden Childs hit a wide open throw in the middle of the field. And watching that, I was like, well, that's like exactly how all this works, right? Landis, you run the ball well enough, you get them in a 3 linebacker look, you run play action, and then you throw against soft coverage. And I kept watching the whole game defensively thinking, okay, a lot of this is prep for Iowa next week. So when people say, is it just for Michigan State? No, 3 linebackers is for Iowa. And they showed it against Michigan State, I thought. And Michigan State made them do it. But then I also thought, I don't think Iowa can make that throw. So that's where I want to make sure that we're giving Michigan State credit, because they ran it effectively enough to set up the personnel and the play call. And then Aiden Childs made the throw, I think maybe to Montori Foster. I don't think Iowa has a quarterback or a receiver who's as dangerous as Michigan State there. So yeah, like that's good ball by Michigan State. So I understand the frustration, but I also thought a lot of what Ohio State did with the 3 linebackers they had to do. I didn't think it was weird.
Yeah,
I thought Michigan State forced them into it.
I think they did, because Michigan State knows as soon as it puts a second tight end on the field, Jim Knowles is taking Jordan Hancock off the field. And
so
I just don't think
that's bad by Ohio State or good by Michigan State or what?
It's both, because Ohio State's linebackers aren't good enough to take Jordan Hancock off the field yet. Like you're taking off a good player to put on a worse player. If it was effective, like sure, great, but it's not working. There's been an uptick the last 3 weeks in three linebacker sets. They did it a little bit against Western Michigan. They did it a decent amount against Marshall, and then they did it a whole lot against Michigan State. And like logically, I get it, right? That they go big, you go big, but when you play big, you're not good. You're worse. So, and it's not like Jordan Hancock is a bad run defender or an unwilling run defender. I think he's a better run defender than the linebackers are putting out there. I think Cody Simon's playing fine. CJ Hicks has clearly fallen down the pecking order, and Sonny Styles isn't playing well. So if you want to play Arvell Reese more or as much as Sonny Styles, I think I'm okay with that. I don't get playing the 3 linebackers when the 3 linebackers aren't giving you a whole lot. And what Michigan State did was go to 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, get Ohio State to go to a 4-3, and then attack Ohio State's linebackers in coverage because they can't cover anybody. And it's like, yes, Cade McNamara can't make the throws that Aiden Childs can make, but Cade McNamara, I think, can throw an 8-yard pass to Luke Lachey when Sonny Styles' head is spinning, right? Like,
yes,
that is what was troubling to me. And I think you could be onto something that like Ohio State has been playing so much 3 linebacker stuff because it has an eye toward the Iowa game this week, which would be, I think, okay if they were actually getting better at it, but they're not. Like I thought this was the worst we've seen out of the 3 linebacker sets. So you want to be building to something, and it feels like they're regressing while also taking a guy who's like their 4th best defender off the field in Jordan Hancock. So I don't quite get it. That's why I say when I feel like Jim Knowles is hamstringing the defense, that's what I'm talking about. Like you're just willingly taking a good player off the field to put more players out there from a weaker position group.
So next week against Iowa, Second drive for Iowa, 1st and 10. They're 12 personnel. What should Ohio State do? They should not put 3 linebackers on the field. Keep Jordan Hancock on the field.
I would keep Jordan Hancock on the field. Yeah,
What
and
what
like
if
if good.
what if it's 3rd and 3 and they're in 12 personnel?
I don't know that I'm ever taking Jordan Hancock off the field.
Okay, I'm pro Jordan Hancock. I understand what they're doing though. So you'll do this. I would imagine you'll do this on Tuesday. This feels like a thing that Bill Landis might have 2 questions back to back for Jim Knowles.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Shake
We're going to
him
talk
out
to
of
Jim
this
Knowles.
idea. We're not going to talk to Jim Knowles.
We talked to him last week, and like Jerry's been on a cycle with Knowles and Kelly. So I'm going to ask for Knowles. I'm going to we can talk because we talked to him every week last year. So I don't know why we couldn't talk to him back to back week. Like this to me also feels like a big enough game where I think we should talk to the head coach and both coordinators, and maybe like not talk to Will Howard on Tuesday. So I'm going to ask for that, but I don't know that we'll get Knowles. But if we do, yeah, I will ask about it, and we'll see what Jim Knowles' answer. I should have asked about it last week. It was just like coming off the Marshall game didn't feel as urgent, but it feels more urgent now off this game going into the Iowa game.
Do you feel like it's it's autocorrect that Jim Knowles types 12 personnel and autocorrects to put 3 linebackers on the field? Like, do you think it's a very strategic decision by him, or do you think it's more like, well, what is supposed to do? He's supposed to put 3 linebackers on the field, even though we haven't seen him do that much in the past. Like, what?
Yeah, it does feel like an autocorrect. I don't know why it's happening, to be honest, because it's not like I don't think he did that at Oklahoma State, right? Like,
yeah, no, I think you're right. But I think he would tell you that he wasn't. I think he would say, well, I wasn't playing teams like Michigan State and Iowa at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, but the team still put 2 tight ends on the field. Like, Michigan State isn't a service academy team. Like, they're putting 2 tight ends on the field to throw the ball at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not. It just feels like an overcorrection to a problem that I'm not even sure exists, because I think Jordan Hancock is a pretty good run defender. And like, if Caleb Johnson runs through Jordan Hancock on Saturday, then I guess I'll be wrong, and you can go to your 3 linebacker look. But I think the defense is worse when they play with 3 linebackers.
Do you think Arvell Reese is part of this? That Arvell Reese has played so well, they have in their head, let's try to get him on the field. Well, this would be a way to get him on the field. We'll play 3 linebackers against 12 personnel, because now all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but now we have 3 linebackers we really believe in. And that's like, they're doing it. It's an autocorrect, but also they can. Like, they believe in the personnel. And the idea that we are here heading into October of 2024, and one of the issues of the defense is people think Sonny Styles is not playing well, is surprising to me. Isn't that surprising to you?
Yeah, it is surprising to me, but I think it's true. He had a bad game against Michigan State, and I don't think he had a great game last week against Marshall either. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's like not seeing things well or not feeling the game well, but he doesn't look comfortable. I think Cody Simon looks pretty comfortable. He's played a lot of football. I think Arvell Reese looks pretty good when he's out there. So yes, I think they are doing it so much because they want to get Arvell Reese on the field, and it does seem like Arvell Reese is only playing when they have 3 linebackers on the field, or mostly playing when they have 3 linebackers on the field. But I don't know, like, why can't you just play Arvell and Cody Simon together then a little more? Like, why does Sonny Styles have to play 42 snaps when he, I think, was maybe your worst linebacker on Saturday?
Yeah, his PFF grade, which is whatever, was a 58, which was among the lowest. Davis and Igbinosun was lower. So what are the plays that stand out for Sonny? Because people did ask about Sonny, right? I guess there's 2. There's one where he had the tight end coverage on a rollout, and he came up at the quarterback and then left the tight end wide open.
Yeah,
right?
It was like
and
a tight end delay. Yeah.
So that you can tell me what's supposed to happen there. What's supposed to happen there?
I think it's just the feel thing. Like Sonny Styles is engaged with that tight end blocking, feels him released to run upfield, and his reaction is to run towards the quarterback instead of running with the tight end.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I'm like, he's still a fairly young football player who's playing linebacker for the first time this year. So I'm not saying he needs to have all the answers right now. But while he's still searching for the answers, I think they are leaving him and themselves vulnerable by playing him so much. And I guess there's a balance there between, like, well, he's got to figure stuff out, so we have to play him. But teams, I think, are clearly attacking him. Like when CJ Hicks was in the game, or even against like Akron, teams were isolating and attacking him. and it felt like Michigan State on Saturday was isolating and attacking Sonny Styles.
Yeah.
And it wasn't all bad. Like Sonny had some nice moments too, but like that play stood out to me. There were a few run plays where felt like Sonny maybe was jumping into the wrong gap or like got a little confused by what he saw in the backfield and then was in a bad spot. So, and then there was that play on the delay, and there was another one where Sonny was like pretty flat-footed and just kind of let the tight end run by him.
So it's the Velling catch where Hancock punched it out and they got a fumble on the play.
Yeah.
But Sonny had coverage on Velling and was flat-footed and gave up the inside and made an easy passing lane, and Velling made a nice catch, and it was his coverage, and then Hancock makes up for it by forcing the fumble. But I mean, it's weird because 2 years ago, they're in bowl practice making Sonny Styles the Brock Bowers stopper, right? The idea that
the Darnell Washington stopper, yeah.
Or the Darnell Washington stopper. But wasn't it like, hey, we're going to get Sonny Styles as a guy who should still be in high school to cover tight ends? Mm-hmm. That's one of the answers for us. And now here we are. And he's a linebacker where one of your regular assignments is going to be covering tight ends. And we're saying like, I don't know if it's going great. It's surprising.
Yeah. I guess in the situation of the Georgia game, it was like all you're doing is you go where Darnell Washington goes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like cover Darnell Washington and by the way, do all the other things that we ask a linebacker to do. Yeah. So there's just more on his plate now. Clearly they trust him, right? Like they certainly think he's a smart enough football player to handle all of that. And they're giving him like the helmet communication stuff sometimes too. Like they there's a lot of belief in Sonny. Mm-hmm. Obviously they played him 42 snaps. It's just he hasn't really hit the ground running, I guess is the best way I would say it. It's a little surprising to me that that's the case. And while it's the case, I think there's an opportunity to play Arvell Reese a little more like with Sonny. If those guys are your three linebackers, Arvell Reese, Cody Simon, Sonny Styles, I think that's fine. I don't know that the snap counts should be as heavily skewed towards Sonny as they have been based off of how guys are playing.
Because now we're back into a definitional Pete Werner is both a linebacker and the bullet kind of thing. It's the idea of like, well, we have three linebackers. We want three linebackers on the field. And it's like, well, what really is the difference between Sonny Styles and Jordan Hancock? Sonny Styles is not Andy Katzenmoyer, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, just have Jordan Hancock on the field. And is he really any different against the run? And he's definitely going to cover better if that's the situation. And so if that's so, we want to listen to what our texters tell us, and it helps us. But then if we're looking for solutions, that feels like a solution to me. It's just bring up Jordan Hancock's snap counts, reduce Sonny Styles' snap counts, and make when Arvell Reese is the game sometimes in place of Sonny Styles instead of it all being three linebackers in place of Jordan Hancock. That's a Bill Landis solution brought to you by What the Hell Was That? Well done, Landis.
Yeah, I guess so. And I think within that, it's like Cody Simon probably doesn't come off the field. Like he can play Mike when Sonny's out there. He can play Will when Arvell's out there, but he probably is on the field all the time.
Yeah, we are like we are in a world where it's like, oh yeah, no, you don't want this defense without Cody Simon. Like, what a credit to Cody Simon. Like Cody Simon is again like out in space making tackles and also sticking his face in the running back's neck at the top of the pile on 4th and 1. And it's like, man, that guy is really valuable to what they want to do. So there's you think that's legitimate? That's legitimate concern that was expressed by the texters that you agree with, but there is a potential solution out there.
I do agree with it. One other piece of that, I guess, and this stretches beyond linebackers, but Eric mentioned it in a text, so I'll read the whole thing. He said, are we entirely sure that guys like Caden McDonald, Arvell Reese, Gabe Powers, and Mitchell Melton aren't better than the guys who are playing ahead of them on the depth chart? And I mentioned that only to bring up Gabe Powers because I think he's a little interesting. Jim Knowles keeps talking about him. Like every time we've talked with Jim Knowles, it's like, yeah, we have this group of linebackers, but boy, Gabe Powers is like really coming on. We kind of hope that Gabe Powers can elevate himself into the same conversation as like Sonny and Arvell. And that's not been the case yet, at least in terms of playing time. I didn't look to see how many snaps Gabe Powers played on Saturday night. He did have that one play at the end of the game where he flew through the air like a missile and decked a running back and caused a pass breakup. Like maybe Gabe Powers is a guy who could start to emerge to give you a little more, if anything else, like depth, if nothing else, depth at linebacker.
But
So
for
we'll see.
who? Where? How? For divvying up snap counts differently in a night when he only played 6 snaps, is that instead of Sonny? Also, are you giving Cody Simon a breather at times?
I think if you're talking about like giving Cody Simon a breather sometimes, because I think Gabe is a Mike as well.
Okay.
I actually don't know. So like Cody can play both, Sonny can play both. Arvel Reese, they really want to keep it Mike. I don't know what their thought process actually is on Gabe. I think with Gabe, it's probably stick at Mike too. So like I'm not on alert for like here comes Gabe Powers necessarily, but I think he has played well at the end of the games when they put him out there. And while they're looking for some more help at linebacker, like maybe
Okay.
just something to keep in mind, I guess. But Eric was not the only person who mentioned Gabe Powers' name, so I
Okay.
just wanted to throw that out there while we were talking about the position.
What about defensive tackles? Some of the names you mentioned them are maybe playing a little bit more, or some of the concern that was expressed about defensive tackle. Without Tyleik Williams last night, defensive tackle snaps, Ty Hamilton 24, Caden McDonald 18, Tywon Malone 17, Hero Canoe 13, Jason Moore 10. Without Tyleik Williams, are you good with that breakdown, or would you like to see some adjustment to it?
I think I'd like to see Caden McDonald play more. I guess he and Tywone Malone were basically even.
Yes.
They did have a pretty strong reaction, I guess, to Hero Canoe not playing well against Marshall, right? He was the guy who got the start in that game, and now he plays 13 snaps against Michigan State after not playing well against Marshall. So and not the necessarily like dog a guy, but like I kind of like that. That at least tells me that like okay, what I thought I saw from that position was real against Marshall, and they kind of responded in kind. And like Tywone Malone played well against Marshall, so he got the start against Michigan State. He was fine, I guess, against Michigan State. I would like to see Caden McDonald play more. It just seems like he makes a lot of splash plays. I think the biggest thing is like Tyleik Williams has to get back.
Yeah.
Like it's not the depth at defensive tackle was a huge question, I think, coming into the season behind Ty Hamilton and Tyleik Williams. And while those guys were playing, I think you can feel pretty good about the depth because they're not necessarily getting put into spots where they were going to get exposed, but now they are without Tyleik, and it's like okay, maybe that's not quite ready for the limelight or for the spotlight. So, I was not surprised that Tyleik didn't play. Like a little frustrated, I guess, that he was available and then didn't play. Just say he's not available, but I'm hoping that he can just play against Iowa because that's where I think you're really going to need him against that rushing attack.
And this doesn't on the spectrum of Bill Landis tells Ohio State what to do. It does not seem out of the realm of possibility to me that starting next week, Caden McDonald's the third defensive tackle. If Tyleik Williams is back, now they start Ty Hamilton and Tyleik Williams, and the third most snaps is Caden McDonald, right? Like that.
Yeah,
that they'll listen to you on that.
I think that'll maybe be a little fluid, depending on what happens. Like I coming off of this game, I would say like yes, that's probably the case, and then if they play some depth defensive tackles against Iowa, although I think if Ty Hamilton and Tyleik Williams, Ty Hamilton is fine. If Tyleik Williams plays, like I think both those guys are going to play almost every defensive snap against Iowa.
Yeah.
So we'll see how much opportunity there is actually for young defensive linemen to play. But yeah, I think I'm not alone. Like people ask about Caden McDonald too. You can tell me if you disagree or not. It's not like he's like making plays like a madman all the time, but he does pop more than the other guys pop. I think.
Yeah,
like he brings some energy to the front and makes some splash plays that I think are noticeable. Even if like down to down, he's still a young player who's figuring some stuff out.
and that you're going to need that against Iowa. You're going to need defensive tackles at least like once every 2 series, breaking through and getting in the backfield, making Caleb Johnson chop his steps before it gets to the line of scrimmage. If you do that once, a drive, and all of a sudden what was going to be a 7-yard run is a 2-yard loss, like that's practically a sack. So so again, I just you're my coach now. Obviously people know I'm not around as Ohio State enough. So like I think you both like to go down the shore, you and Jim Knowles, and I haven't seen Jim Knowles in a while. You are my Jim Knowles now. So I'll just do this. So like I think Jim, Philly Jimmy and Philly Billy Jimmy, if you're going to tell me that Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton each play 70% of the snaps against Iowa, and then the result is that Caden McDonald sucks up a lot. So that's 60, right? There's 30 and 30 for each guy. There's Caden McDonald that he takes up a lot of that. I'm here for that. And I think that's what you're going to do, Coach.
We'll see. No, I think you are right. I think Caden McDonald over the last 2 weeks, while playing more in some bigger spots, has shown that he can handle it mostly. While like Hiro Kanu, I think has not, and Tywone Malone's been a little up and down. So I think Caden, at least in my mind, is pretty firmly the third guy. We'll see if the snap counts bear that out against Iowa.
And that's one of those things where you just it's how much are you just rotating and giving guys a shot, or now it's money time and everybody doesn't get a turn anymore, and we're just going to play the best guys, and all of a sudden our defensive tackle rotation against Iowa is 3 guys. And I think that's possible. Before we wrap up defense, I think it is important to point out, I thought the Hancock forced fumble on the Velling catch where he beat Sonny was sort of the story of the defense this year, because they are being so much more aggressive with forcing turnovers. And the idea of that was a bad play for the defense that ended with a turnover, because after one guy got beat, somebody else came in and didn't just make the tackle, but forced a fumble. And that was a forced fumble by Jordan Hancock. And the fumble forced on Aiden Childs was a forced fumble. Lathan Ransom punched it. Now, it shouldn't have counted because Aiden Childs got face masked, and it certainly affected him that he was getting his face ripped off while Lathan Ransom was punching. But from the Ohio State side of things, it was a bad call, a missed call, and bad luck for Michigan State. But Lathan Ransom did his job. They're forcing turnovers, Bill. And so there's this other thing still too of, okay, if the evolution was give up big plays to not give up big plays to now not give up big plays and force turnovers, that's the best way to not give up big plays, because you make a team march, and while they're marching, you're punching at the ball every play. And at once out of every 20 punches, you need to connect. And if you're making them march and not giving up 70-yard bombs, you're going to force a couple turnovers in the game. And I think that is, we have to appreciate that, because it previously wasn't always the case, and it's a thing I think you can almost count on now.
Yeah, I think some people probably will tell you that there's more luck involved there than anything else. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, because Ohio State was trying to get better at that this offseason. It was a major talking point with Jim Knowles throughout camp. Is we got to find more ways to generate more takeaways. And sometimes the quarterback will just throw you the ball the way that Aiden Childs did to Denzel Burke, but it's more of the stuff that Jordan Hancock did and what Lathan Ransom did. That to me is not luck. That is a skill that was practiced in the offseason that Ohio State's defense is now bringing to the table, trying to rip the ball away from people. And there's a fine line there, right? You want to make sure that you're still tackling in a sound and fundamental kind of way while you're going for the ball. But I think thus far, the safeties especially have done that. So yeah, that feels like a somewhat reliable component of this defense. And it's good to see them put something out there that clearly had been a point of emphasis in the offseason. And it also too, I think, speaks to no, certainly not everything is perfect with the defense right now, but you still have guys like Lathan Ransom, like Jordan Hancock, like Caleb Downs making things right even when they initially go wrong. So that's not a bad thing either.
Yeah. Couple of the things just on the defense that I wanted to just point out before we move off of it. As much as people thought Davison Igbinosun did not have a great game, when he wasn't playing off coverage, the play before the 4th down where Cody Simon stopped him on 4th down was like a quick little slant on 3rd down that they completed, that Davison Igbinosun attacked and tackled the guy short of the marker on a play where I think there's a lot of corners who do not make that tackle, who don't have the aggressive trigger and then don't have the physicality to bring the guy down. That was a huge play. That to me was that's exactly what Davison Igbinosun is, which is maybe I'll give it up, but then you are going down. And so there were times, and then after the turnover where they get the whatever quick little bubble, and Igbenogsen's playing 10 yards off the guy, and they get a touchdown right away off of it. And it's like, why is he playing so far off there?
Mhm.
I don't know if that's the call. I don't know if that's him. Like, when he's off, like it's like, what are we doing here? Right? Like, let him be an octopus and envelop a guy. So he just was in off coverage getting beat. But when he wasn't in off coverage, I thought that was a huge tackle. And I just wanted to point that out.
I mean, that the tackling was what Davis and Igbenogsen does best. I think the reason he does play off so much is because I don't think he's great in contested catch situations yet. Like he's not bad, but like it's not his strength. Like his strength is, I think his strength is playing off, driving on the ball, and making a tackle.
Yeah.
That touchdown, I guess, notwithstanding, because that he was kind of put in a tough spot, I think, on that play.
Was
it is
weird,
weird to me.
Weird.
Yeah, it is that's part like it's not just the personnel stuff with the defense. Like some of the, I guess that's a schematic choice to play your corners off as much as they are. Like even Denzel Burke, I think, is giving up some stuff because he's playing so far off the ball, right? And we got more than a few questions about, like, why are the defensive backs playing so soft? Why is the coverage not as sticky as it needs to be? Why aren't they playing more press man? I don't know. Like it's another thing I'd like to ask Jim Knowles. Like I think it's probably, we're not going to give up big plays. We want to keep everything in front of us, but it does feel like an odd way to play all the time.
Yeah.
When you're as good as you are at corner, right? Like don't on one hand tell me how good the secondary is and how like ferocious they are, and then be hesitant to play them aggressively. So it's a little odd to me, because maybe they would get burned if they played press man all the time. I don't know, but I kind of feel like Denzel Burke can probably play press man just fine. So I'd like to see them do some more of that. But that could also be, there's a ramp up to this, right? There's the 3 non-conference games. They're playing a Michigan State team that, while it has some pieces, I don't think you find all that threatening. Like maybe they're holding back on some stuff, or just like keeping it a little vanilla for now while the Iowa game looms, and more specifically the Oregon game looms. So like that's at least part of my thought process, not to provide excuses for kind of bizarre choices, but I guess I'm willing to entertain the idea that like maybe they're doing that now with a eye on something different down the road.
Last thing defensively, it was Ohio State had failed, I think, and punted back. Michigan State had the ball back in a situation where it was like, oh, this is a drive where they could maybe do something. And if they do something, then like this is a game. And on second down, JT Tuimoloau just destroyed the left tackle and made the quarterback eat the left tackle's face, and sacked Aiden Childs in a way that people have been asking for. He ran through a human. And it was like, let's see an edge for Ohio State make a play. And it was a gigantic play on second down, because it set up a 3rd and 11. And then they threw short on 3rd and 11. And Caleb Downs, the human missile, came up and tackled the guy right away. And it was like, okay, this was right at a moment. I think it was late in the first half. This is right at a moment where maybe something's about to happen. And then 2 defensive stars said, nope, it's not happening. And like, we have to note that when it happens. I thought that was as good of a pass rush from JT as we've seen this year. Absolute bowled through a guy. And then I know you wrote about it, but like Caleb Downs' human missile was definitely in play. And there's part of it, I wonder if Sonny Styles, when he's trying to figure out like, oh, what gap am I supposed to be in? I'm covering the tight end or whatever, is like, I wish I could be a human missile too. Because we're in this world now. Everybody wanted Sonny Styles to be a linebacker, but then sometimes if you're just back there kind of playing and seeing what's up, and you're just like, oh, there's the ball, I'm going to go get it. And Sonny Styles is trying to think 8 things at once. And Caleb Downs is see ball, get ball. And Caleb Downs obviously was all over the place. So there were times when their defensive stars did make plays.
Yeah. Caleb, well, for right now, Ohio State's best linebackers are at safeties, or the way that Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom are playing downhill, like, which is fine. Like, that's actually like what Jim Knowles' defense is. Like, so we talk so much about safety driven defenses when he first got here, right? So it's okay. But I thought, when the defense did seem out of sorts at times, Caleb Downs just like, I got it. I'm gonna run down to the line and blow up this screen or blow up this run play behind the line of scrimmage, and we'll be in second and long, and it'll be fine. It's like, okay, well, that's not a bad answer to have if you're trying to figure some stuff out.
Yeah. So Ty Hamilton, right, took out the center on the sneak, or on the 4th and 1 handoff to the running back that allowed Cody Simon
It was a sneak
to get over the top.
It was a
Oh,
quarterback.
yeah.
It was Aiden. Yeah, it was
Oh,
Aiden Childs.
oh, it was Aiden Childs, right? It was a sneak.
Yeah.
That was good by him. Ty Hamilton also got in the backfield, made at least one play. So like, it wasn't. It was more like off coverage and intermittent. Oh, like what was that? But they also, I thought the defense made like 6 8 plays that like really mattered. So, anything else on the defense from our texters or from you before we shift?
Yes. Just another one thing on the secondary, because I think people were so Ben said, is the secondary not clicking? It seems like they're lost sometimes. Igbinosun had his worst game in a while, and then Lucas said, should Jermaine Matthews be getting more snaps at corner, like taking some of those Davis and Igbinosun snaps? Maybe. Like I always thought the idea of a rotation at the corner spot opposite Denzel Burke was possible with Jermaine Matthews and Davis and Igbinosun. So I don't know that I'd be against the idea of giving Jermaine Matthews some more run. I don't know that I thought Igbinosun played like a terrible game. I would maybe agree that it wasn't his best game. I would agree that it wasn't his best game, but like I don't think that's like a bench Davis and Igbinosun situation. But if you want to mix it up a little bit and give Jermaine Matthews some more run, I think I can get behind that idea.
He wasn't getting smoked. It was more like the coverage plan. It's like, why is he off so much? It's not like guys are running by the Ohio State corners. And there was like one, they hit a crosser on Jordan Hancock on a pretty big play. It was like Jordan Hancock got picked.
Yeah, by a tight end.
And it's like, that stuff happens sometimes.
They were also in a weird alignment on that play because they were playing dime, and Davis and Igbinosun, Jermaine Matthews, and Jordan Hancock were all on the same side of the field. And it was Davis and Igbinosun covering a tight end and Jordan Hancock covering a slot receiver. And I wonder how often Davis and Igbinosun and Jordan Hancock are in positions in practice where they're like trying to figure out how to trade off routes with each other on the inside like that. When Davis and Igbinosun is usually playing outside.
Right. I thought Michigan State has limitations, but competently attacked the Ohio State defense. And so well coached, multiple skill guys, and a quarterback who certainly has upside and is a little inconsistent, but has real upside. So, okay. I think I am like, if you're on the worry chart for the Ohio State defense, and let's make it like, is the Ohio State defense going to be as good as it needs to be for Ohio State to have a chance to reach its goals this season? 10 is like, I'm freaking out. I think the defense is going to hold Ohio State back. Oh my God, that's a 10. 1 is like, oh, they got it. They're good. Like it's fine. This is a championship level defense. What are you?
Like a 3.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a 3 too. I'd be curious how many fans, and maybe I'll send this out to the texters. How many people would be like more towards the freak out, like a 6 or above? Because I just don't think, because here's the thing again, and I'm not going to make this a Georgia show because I made our late night KOTN show a Georgia show, and you were kind of like, Georgia's in the South. Sometimes when you analyze the game, it's like, wow, that opposing offense made plays, right? And then sometimes it's like, what's wrong with the defense? I thought like in the Alabama-Georgia game, both defenses were like, we don't know how to cover receivers at all. And I know these guys are making plays, but there were blown coverages all over the place. Like the game-winning play is a corner the Georgia corner is literally going like this when the ball is in the air while throwing it to Ryan Williams, who did not make a miraculous one-handed Jeremiah Smith catch. He just kind of came back to the ball and went like this because the corner ran past him like he was looking for a bird. But nobody's talking about what's wrong with the Georgia defense, at least not on my timeline. So Michigan State made some plays. So it's just like, that's also remember that like defense is hard sometimes and sometimes you give some stuff up. So I'm not making excuses for Ohio State, but don't go through your weekend thinking, well, about all the defenses out there who are playing perfect, because they're not. That's all. Yeah. True? Is that true?
I think that's true. Yeah.
Where's the ball? Oh, is that a pigeon? Is that a seagull? It's Ryan Williams. He just got a touchdown. We lost. Nobody's talking about that. All right. Ohio State's offense. Where do our texters want to start with that, Bill?
Do you want to start with Jeremiah Smith? There are 2 things I really want to talk about. One of them is Jeremiah Smith, and there were questions about another one. But let's start with Jeremiah Smith. Because Dan sent in a text that said, I listened to your Jeremiah Smith Crazy Talk podcast this morning. I wasn't convinced through the first 3 games, and I rolled my eyes at Bill and Doug while listening. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I retract my eye rolls.
Retract the eye rolls. That is a good, like, if we could make a shirt like with the eyeball emojis, retract your eye rolls. Because did his hands grow? Do you think his hands grew in the last 2 weeks? Because I do think that the things that he's doing I didn't think, like, Michigan State wasn't like blowing it against Jeremiah Smith. There was coverage there, and he was just like, it's fine. I got it.
He's getting his face mask pulled down to the ground when he made the first catch, the 27-yarder with one hand. Like, yeah, they were there. They were all over him.
It is a remarkable. It's just the physical gifts that as they continue, they're doing an excellent job getting him the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And you can clearly tell he works really hard because he's like constantly on point, and that includes his blocking. But then the physical gifts are just a step beyond. And that is not a shot at anybody. But it feels, I mean, if you lined up Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Marvin Harrison Jr., and then you put Jeremiah Smith next to them, and it would be like, here's the deal. They're all good and they all work hard. Who do you want? It's like, what are you talking about? Who do we want? We want that guy. And then he'd raise his hand, and it's like, can you palm a watermelon? What is that grip that guy has? So I think we're there, and we're not. Maybe I'll ask the question again. Maybe I'll ask the question again this week for the texters, like, and see. Well, remember, it was like 55-45 for Marv, I think, last time, right? When we asked who would you rather have, senior, and again, that's the question. Marvin Harrison Jr. stays at Ohio State for his senior year, and Jeremiah Smith says, I'm not going to get any playing time. I'm going to Miami. Or Marvin Harrison Jr. leaves for the NFL, and Jeremiah Smith comes and is what he is right now. What would you rather have? That's the question. And it was 55-45 Marv 2 weeks ago. And now what do you think it would be? Like 70-30 Jeremiah? Or would it be 95-5 because nobody wants to be the person not voting for Jeremiah Smith anymore?
It could be 95-5. There were people during the game who were asking us to resend the survey. Like after the first catch, it's like, please resend the survey. Then after the touch, I was like, oh my God, resend the survey.
So what a thing to have. And aren't they doing a good job getting him the ball? Even like the little reverse. Like, how good was that in the red zone?
Yeah, that was awesome. Like, because obviously he can do that stuff. Yeah, they're doing a great job of getting him the ball. Like I said in the opener, right? It was evident that Will Howard trusts him with the way that he was going to Jeremiah Smith on all those third downs against Akron. Like you have seen other parts of the passing offense, I think, come to the forefront. Like Emeka Bukas played really well the last 2 weeks. Carnell Tate, I think, continues to provide like a big catch or three every game in a pretty impressive way. But I still think Jeremiah is probably, I don't know, maybe it's Emeka. It still feels to me like Jeremiah is the guy they're going to go to more often in crunch time, and he's able to handle it, which is remarkable for a true freshman. So they're not shy about really trying to build this thing around him. When I thought there, like, maybe I've said this, I thought there'd be a much more gradual build up to this, but they kind of came out of the gates like, nope, he's one of our guys. We're gonna get the ball to him no matter what the situation is.
Emeka did have 2 weird drops Saturday night.
Yeah,
I thought it was uncharacteristic. Mm-hmm. He had Emeka had 11 targets against Michigan State. Jeremiah Smith had 6 for the year. Emeka Egbuka 30 targets. Jeremiah Smith 24. Emeka Egbuka 362 receiving yards. Jeremiah Smith 364 receiving yards. Jeremiah Smith 5 receiving touchdowns. Emeka Egbuka 2 receiving touchdowns. Carnell Tate 17 targets, and then nobody else more than 7. So, like, good creativity, not force feeding. I thought there was I thought Will Howard, I think it was a third down throw, kind of just like a deep out to Emeka, where it was like, he's there, he's got him, he threw a good ball. And it was just like another example. I think Will Howard, and I'm sure we have Will Howard questions, I thought he has a good handle on, like, my guy's got a thing, I'm going to give him a shot. My guy's got a thing, I'm going to give him a shot. And obviously, I mean, I know you guys talked about it this week, like Jeremiah Smith went back and like said that interception that Will Howard threw against Marshall, right, was on Jeremiah Smith. He took ownership of that. That was on the route. It's like, it's a good decision. I like when Will Howard is taking either Emeka or Jeremiah when they're single covered.
Yeah, I think there were a few Will Howard questions. I actually just grabbed one because I thought Brent I think kind of spoke for a lot of people when he said, like, he said, I'm still worried about Will Howard's decision making and long distance throwing. Which I think the long distance throwing piece I think will be a thing people mention until it happens. I think he threw one ball 20 plus yards down the field in this game. It was completed.
Yeah,
I
is it
thought
the
his
Emeka throw we were just talking about? That
yeah,
sideline throw? He put it in a good spot where only Emeka could catch it. Wasn't a perfect
I
ball, but he put it in the right spot.
yeah, I thought that like his maybe more kind of like second level rather than third level throws were pretty good against Michigan State. The interception was bad. I actually think like rewatching the play, I think one, he never saw the linebacker who picked the ball off. But two, there's like a vertical route right behind it
Yes.
from Jeremiah Smith. And I think Will Howard probably expected that corner to fall off to like or to keep following the vertical route. And he didn't do it. So the corner was also there. But I think mostly he just never saw that linebacker flashing in front of him. So like it was a bad throw. He's got to see the field better than that.
I almost thought he maybe saw it right as the ball was coming out of his hand,
Yeah.
and it almost affected his throw. Because I think he thought the corner was going to run with Jeremiah, and he was surprised by the guy underneath. And then the result was they were both there.
Yeah.
And so he did not expect that coverage. And he was like, oh, I think this is, oh, no, it's not. And then it was like, it was the worst of all possible worlds because he did get, the coverage got him. The coverage got him on that play.
Yeah. And the throw was a little off target too, right? It was a little high. So maybe that's why like he tried to stop himself and the ball came out a little high.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then he had the one in the end zone where he tried to force it. I can't remember. It would have been also to Jeremiah and the
that
safety
should have been picked that hit. So he never saw that safety. And if you freeze that, so Jeremiah beats the guy who's on him. I think Will Howard didn't throw it hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
He should have ripped it. And I thought he didn't rip it. But that, again, was pretty good coverage. I think there's 6 guys in coverage for Michigan State and 4 guys in the route for Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just that lurking safety on the opposite side who comes across. And when Will Howard is releasing that ball, that guy is not even like near the play. But Will didn't put enough on it. And I thought, again, it was good coverage by Michigan State. He never saw him. And if you freeze it right at the point that he's releasing it, you see exactly what he sees, which is Jeremiah Smith has beaten the guy that's on him, and he doesn't expect this guy in the backside.
Yeah, I thought it was a decent game for Will Howard. Like the mistake was bad, but I thought again it was like second level throws were pretty good on a couple of the deep outs. The accuracy on the 4th down touchdown to Emeka on that crossing route was really good. Like just like good ball placement where it was like out of harm's way, but also in a spot where Emeka could run it or catch it and keep running with it. The same thing on the touchdown pass to G. Scott.
Oh, G. Scott. Yeah, no, that one I thought that was a 4th down too. That was
also
well done.
Down. He threw 2 4th down touchdown passes on similar route concepts. One just was like a catch and run after the fact with Emeka. So like I think his accuracy short to intermediate has been very good. Down the field, I don't even know. I might push back on saying the downfield stuff has been bad. I think there's just not been a large enough sample size to discern one way or the other. It's a thing he came here having to work on. I agree with that. And you want to see him be able to do it, but I don't know that the lack of throwing the ball down the field thus far too is a reflection on what Ohio State thinks about his ability either. Like they're doing a bunch of RPO stuff. They're throwing the ball into the flats a lot because it's there and they're blocking really well, which is what I want to talk about that in a second. So like, while that is effective, I'm pretty okay with them kind of operating that way. And then when defenses start to adjust to that, I think they will throw the ball down the field because they have an alien in Jeremiah Smith and they got a pretty good guy in Emeka Ibuka and another good guy in Carnell Tate to throw the ball to. So I think the passing game is fine. I think Will Howard is still maybe figuring out the speed of some things and he'll have to adjust as he continues to go through the Big Ten and defenses start to play him different ways. And maybe Michigan State was doing some of that, but I actually thought it was mostly a pretty good game for Will Howard.
They're just not doing it. If you look at by PFF quarterbacks, their throws of 20 yards or more down the field, guys like Billy Edwards at Maryland and Shadur Sanders at Colorado and Cam Ward at Miami and our friend Jackson Dart at Ole Miss and even Carson Beck, they're doing it like 6 or 7 times a game. They're throwing it 20 yards down the field or more. Will Howard has 8 in 4 games.
Yeah.
So but he's completed 4 of them. So it doesn't tell you how good the passes are, but like they're just kind of not. They're not doing it yet, and their explosiveness comes not from deep shots, but from short things that they hit guys on the move. So,
yeah,
because I thought we were here on Wednesday on Kings of Columbus saying that we thought one of Will Howard's 2 best traits were decision making and toughness. So I don't think he's a bad decision maker. I think he's a good decision maker who got tricked by coverage on the pick and got lucky when he didn't see a backside safety on the other one. That could have been a pick, but I don't think he's seeing ghosts. I don't think he's confused. Right?
No, I don't. No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, yeah, NFL quarterbacks sometimes get confused by coverage too. Like it's not, if the expectation is like A+, don't ever lose a snap to the defense, then I guess
Yeah.
maybe you can question decision making. But I think 95% of his decisions to this point have been pretty good, both in reading coverages and also just kind of determining where the ball needs to go when a given play when he has multiple options.
So I just want to say again, man, I sound like I make excuses. I make excuses for Ohio State these days, but they are the national championship favorite now, by the way, on DraftKings.
Oh, really?
Plus 350. Yeah. So after the turnover and the short field touchdown when Igbinosun played too far off for Michigan State, right?
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State scores. The next, Ohio State comes out on the first play of the next series, and they hit like a 20-yard out that like looked like it was on air. And I think it's just a reminder that like that is still not normal. It's like, okay, we need to answer. What's our answer? How about a 20-yard completion on first down that looked like it was in spring practice?
Mm-hmm.
Like the other team wasn't even trying to defend us. Like, let's do that. And I think there needs to be an appreciation for how good Ohio State still is at that at times. That's being scared of their receivers, that's scheme, but it also is having a quarterback who can make those long throws that you believe in. And I just like in that moment, it's like you need to answer here. And I think for Ohio State fans, you can just let a play like that fly by. Oh, it's a 20-yard gain. Whatever. Seen that before. But man, when you don't have it, you notice not having it. And so I just, there's still a decent amount of that in the passing game. And then the RPO stuff that really works. And so like, there's a lot that's still working in this passing game because Will Howard is not CJ Stroud, but he's good enough to do it.
Yeah. And that's not it is a throw that I think does get taken for granted if you're someone who has watched Ohio State since Ryan Day has been here, because all of his quarterback, I guess maybe Colin McCord wasn't great at it, but every other quarterback could do it exceedingly well. And like, if you watch a college football game, those throws are there. Like the opening for those throws are there all the time, but not every quarterback can make it. Like the far hash to outside the numbers kind of throw that Will Howard made 2 or 3 times against Michigan State. It's like, yes, it's like a quote unquote free 20 yards, but it's like, you gotta be a pretty good quarterback to make that throw. So, and Will Howard can do it. So like, I was actually pretty happy to see that, because I was wondering about that element of the offense. It just makes Ohio State so hard to guard when that throw that I think is like a sneaky high level of difficulty just sort of feels like a layup for Ohio State, when for a lot of other teams it's not.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to say it. Okay, but can I talk about my guy, my favorite Buckeye, who I just have always believed in since he got here, real quick?
Sure.
Josh Simmons, my guy.
Yeah. Big Josh Simmons guy.
Big Josh Simmons guy. So 2 things that jumped out for me on Josh Simmons. And again, you have to think about the inverse of what if it didn't happen. The first one is the 4th down throw to G. Scott for the touchdown, which is he's on the right side and has to work all the way across to the left to get open. Go back and watch this. And by the way, going back and trying to rewatch something on Peacock is like trying to split the atom.
Yeah.
Peacock's broadcast typically feels like to me that like it's a group of middle schoolers getting together for the first time and trying to put on a show. And then also they're like, if you want to rewatch it back, you have to watch 76 commercials.
Yeah.
And YouTube is like, you want to watch it back? Here, click, 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 click. You can watch a whole game in like 35 minutes. And Peacock is like, no, we want Gary Sinise to tell you about veterans that you can donate to 73 times, which I'm here for. But I hate Peacock. And maybe someday we'll be picked up by Peacock and then I will love them. But until they're cutting me a check, it is a terrible experience for college football fans. Is it not?
It is. We had a lot of questions about that. I just didn't, I didn't want back-to-back Sunday sound offs to be about the quality of the broadcast, because we knew going into this one that it was going to be bad. It just unfortunately lived up to our expectations.
It's just amateurish. It's amateur. It's just amateurish.
Did
It's
you
so
like them calling
frustrating.
Quinshon Jenkins for like the first 3 quarters of the game?
I don't know what happened. I was like, is the guy, did they replace the play-by-play announcer? Is it a spy? What's happening? He just changed his name. And it feels like, I thought the whole thing, it looked like it was take your kid to work day. And like Colt McCoy put on his best blazer to go with his dad to his job. And then they're like, hey, son, do you want to be the color analyst for today? And then he's just narrating the highlight most of the time. Yeah. It's like, oh, there was like, they set him up for an intro early in the game. And they were like, I think it might have been Jeremiah Smith. And he started off by saying like, he's good. And it's like, oh my God. It's a bad experience. And yeah, and we get names wrong too sometimes, but like when you're calling one game with 2 teams, I didn't know what that was. I was like, does that guy need medical attention? He just forgot the name of Ohio State's running back. Josh Simmons, watch that play. Crosser, right? Josh Simmons just stones. One-on-one, stones the rush end for Michigan State. And if you do not protect on that play, it's 4th down. You have to let the tight end work across. If you do not protect, the play is dead. And they call that play, and Jeremiah Smith might have been the first read, but like G. Scott coming all the way across is definitely a primary read on that play. If you don't block it, it's over. And I think Josh Simmons could have blocked it for 17 seconds on that play if need be. And it was one-on-one the whole time. And that's what your left tackle's supposed to do. But boy, oh boy, do you notice when he doesn't. So I wanted to note that. You note that. People go back and watch it.
I actually didn't. I want to go back and watch that play now. No, I didn't.
It's perfect. And then the other one is this. Right after that 20-yard, I just want to shout out my guy. I mean, we've been doing this together for a long time. After that throw we talked about, after the Michigan State touchdown, they get the 20-yard throw to Jeremiah Smith, and then G. Scott has a holding penalty, and all of a sudden they're 1st and 20, and it's like, okay, because they had a drive blown up by the Will Kazmarek face mask penalty early on that forced him into a field goal that blew up that drive. So it's like you get a bad penalty early on, it blows up your drive. So now all of a sudden they're 1st and 20, and on 1st and 20 they hand off to, should I get this right? Yeah, they hand off to Travion, right? And he runs 37 yards. It's like a really good call, 1st and 20. You think they're going to throw whatever. And it gets them right back on track, okay? On that play, watch that play. Go back and watch that play if you can wade through the peacock muck. Josh Simmons gets to the 2nd level on the linebacker, and they called out, I think the guard came out and pulled for Ohio State, but Josh Simmons gets to the 2nd level, takes the linebacker and literally turns him outside, takes the man's whole body, turns him to the side, and takes him out of the play to create the other side of that hole for Travion. And it is like perfect offensive line, get to the 2nd level, engage the linebacker, and usher him into the stands. Work. And it was like, it was noticeable to me of like, here are moments when Josh Simmons is doing his job perfectly.
Yeah. He had I think it was Travion's 2nd touchdown last week against Marshall, where Josh Simmons just took the linebacker for a ride, just like knocked him out of the play and then pushed him like 9 yards farther than he had to push him. And then when the play was over, just like got in his face and was like, did you see what I just did to you there? Like kind of thing. Like there's a level of physicality with Josh Simmons this year that I think is noticeably improved from last year. And he was talking about that last week too. So he's playing really well. I think on that the long run you're talking about too, when Sareveld was the guy who pulled and blocked, we got a question from Jason about whether or not Austin Sareveld might have moved ahead of Tegra Shabola in this game. And I don't know if you have the snap counts up still to see who played more. I would imagine Tegra still played more. But I do think it's possible that Austin Sareveld might have passed Tegra Shabola in this game. And I like Tegra. I think Tegra's played well. I just think Sareveld's played better.
I also thought there was a short yardage play where a guy flashed into the backfield. I thought it might have been Sareveld getting beat on that play. I don't know. You think Sareveld so far this season, if you're just like, who's played better, Sareveld or Shabola? Who would you say?
I think Sareveld's played a little better. Yeah.
Tegra Shabola, 47 snaps. Austin Cerebeld 30 snaps.
Cerebeld also stayed out there in the fourth quarter when the second team offensive line was out there.
Okay.
And Tigger wasn't playing. So
okay. But offensive line, like a kind of I don't know. I thought a decent amount of do your job stuff. And again, the perimeter blocking from the receivers is top notch.
That was the last thing I wanted to make sure we mentioned. We got a text from Brian who said, I love the blocking coming from different places. Trayvon's blocking and pass protection was great. Also, did you see Emeka Egbuka plant the middle linebacker on the long Judkins run?
Yeah,
I did. That play was awesome. They ran that play. So that was like the play last week against Marshall where they had the two tight ends. They pulled both of them and the guard. I think there's a Dan Casey on Twitter is like a scheme guy, called it super counter. I've never heard anybody call it play super counter before, but super counter sounds cool to me. So I'll call it super counter. Same play with the Emeka Egbuka, but instead of two tight ends, it was one tight end and a Mecca. So they pulled a guard, a tight end, and a receiver on a counter play. And I thought it was especially cool because like the beginning of the game, they're talking about like, I don't mean to make fun of the guy necessarily, but Michigan State linebacker Cal Halliday, like he's a no frills throwback kind of guy, doesn't wear any gloves, like a pretty tough dude. And Emeka flattened him. just put him in the ground on that run. And it was like, one, it's like, oh, there's Chip Kelly kind of at it again. But it's also like, yeah, these receivers and the skill guys, the running backs, whether it's in pass protection or on screen plays or run plays or whatever, the blocking is incredible. It's the best I've seen since the Urban Meyer years. Like it's really good.
And it's whatever the times that we have not made fun of, but wondered why Ryan Day was getting bogged down in toughness conversations. I think he would say it's because it was in pursuit of this.
Mm-hmm.
I think like this is it. And so they're not throwing the ball down the field a ton, but they're explosive in short area quickness. And then they are running the ball and blocking inside and on the perimeter with authority. And even just like we've been in worlds where I can't remember if it was last year or more 2 years ago with the offensive line for Ohio State. I guess it was last year where like it would like they would get out to the second level and they didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
And there'd be floating linemen. And all the times we talked about, hey, let's go watch teams who have perfect execution on blocks. And then let's go watch Ohio State who couldn't block a guy at the second level to save your life. And Michigan does it every play, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're doing that now. Seth McLaughlin's getting to the second level. Josh Simmons is getting to the second level, right? They are doing that. And the times that we've had conversations about perimeter blocking being an issue, you can't run that end around to Jeremiah Smith if you don't get perimeter blocking. If you don't believe that Emeka Egbuka and G. Scott are going to get out in front and do their job and make it look easy. There have been times with Ohio State where that stuff has not looked easy because they have not executed those blocks. So I think Ryan Day I would bet he is exceedingly happy with the toughness explosion balance right now, because it might be like 65% physical, 35% explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I want them to be 90-10, but then they'll give you speeches about how like 90-10 explosion to physical toughness is not a way to win a national championship. I think they are on their trajectory offensively. You know, we understand there's a coverage here, a coverage there you don't see. There's a couple drops here, that kind of thing. But I think their trajectory offensively is right where you want them to be at this point.
I think so too, because I'm not worried about their ability to kind of push it down the field more if the time comes where they have to do that. That I think where this offense has gotten bogged down in the past is clearly like not being able to run the ball when you should be able to run the ball, but also like being able to adjust with like some quick game and stuff on the perimeter, and then being as precise as they have been through these 4 games. And then it's like, well, all we can do is try to throw the ball down the field. Hopefully CJ Stroud and Marv can make this thing happen. And usually they did. But I think this offense, while I don't think it'll ever be as good as like the peak passing offenses are throwing down the field. I think will be good enough when the time comes, but in the meantime is doing some other things, I think at a higher level than some previous offenses when it comes to the perimeter game and obviously running the ball.
Yeah. Anything else from the Texers that we didn't get to?
No, I think we hit on everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we got to all the topics.
Did you notice Fox ran a big noon commercial that was mocking streaming?
No.
Yeah, it was like I thought you guys were all in this together. It's like NBC gets a piece and CBS gets a piece and Fox gets a piece and you all share the Big Ten. And Fox had a commercial that was like, streaming is impossible to find. Big noon is always here. I was like, wow, I agree.
Yeah.
But also, wow. So hopefully no more Peacock games for Ohio State.
I wonder if NBC, like when NBC does the Olympics, like they'll throw stuff on like USA Network and stuff like they'll just put stuff on different cable channels that don't typically have sports, but like they'll put it there because they have nowhere else to put it. And it's also on Peacock. Like I wonder if we'll ever get there with the college football stuff, because only having it on Peacock like really sucks.
No.
As a viewing experience. And I also thought like I was watching the Notre Dame game like earlier in the day, and I thought just like the times of stream quality was bad. Like everything else I'm watching on streaming looks fine, but every now and then the Peacock one gets a little fuzzy, and I'm like, I can't tell what's happening. I hope a big play doesn't occur. So it's just not it was really bad last year. I was kind of hopeful that it was going to get a little better this year, and I'm not so sure that it has. It was pretty.
I think it's a little better. I think
the presentation's a little better. The commentary obviously is not very good if you're going to get that Siciliano Colt McCoy team. So yeah, I don't. The biggest frustration for me comes when you try to rewatch it. It's like I'm waiting. I'm hoping that someone does the work for me and puts that thing on YouTube, so I don't have to go back through and rewatch it on Peacock.
It just annoys me because like you're already paying for Peacock, so I paid for it. Don't make me rewatch a Gary Sinise commercial 17 times to rewatch the game. Yeah. So, okay, that'll wrap it up for this Sunday sound off on Kings of Columbus. We'll be back on Monday on Kings of the North with our recap of everything happening in Northern college football. Curious to see what the polls do. I mean, Alabama's definitely going to be number 1, and Texas will be number 2, and Ohio State will probably be number 3. But the thing about it is there's a lot, like Oregon did this as well. Oregon looked good in the first half against UCLA and then kind of didn't do much in the second half. And there's just a lot of conversations with the top teams about like not playing 2 great halves. Like you look good and then you don't look good. Like that is a common refrain out there in college football. And I think like Ohio State's been caught up in that a little bit, but I do think there's a trajectory. And so I'm super eager for Iowa. Would you expect that we will do a pretty hardcore big game breakdown of Ohio State and Iowa on Wednesday's Kings of Columbus?
I think the game warrants it. Like I know Iowa has that loss, and the national conversation still is very much like, oh, I can't wait for Ohio State, Oregon. Like I think Ohio State, Iowa is going to be pretty interesting. So yeah, I think it would be doing a big game breakdown back-to-back weeks, but I'll never shy away from that. I think our folks would want that. Maybe we'll ask, like, if you don't want that, because we want to do nonsense and have fun too. But I think to me, the whole point of covering Ohio State is knowing when not to do 6 hours of hardcore pregame analysis on Ohio State's matchup with Kent State or whatever. Like that's not worth it. But then when it's time to talk ball, let's talk some ball. So I think this is a week for it. And I'll say I was on an Iowa podcast this week, and the host said something like, well, Iowa's got to play perfectly to have a chance, whatever. It's like, I don't think that's true. Like, I don't think Iowa is a juggernaut, but they have a good defense and a good run game. And that is a lot. And just the moments when you could see Michigan State running the ball. I thought Michigan State was like an excellent prep for Iowa, for Ohio State. And so will Iowa be able to handle Ohio State's explosion? Well, they have a pretty good secondary. They do have a pretty good secondary. They have an excellent defensive coordinator. So that's a good defense. And then we had a whole conversation last week on KOTN about whether Caleb Johnson should be a Heisman candidate for Iowa. And I think he should be. Like, he is excellent. And so they can't throw it. But I think there's a version of like, well, just Iowa with who they are is going to challenge Ohio State. I don't think this is Villanova, Georgetown. I don't think it requires Iowa perfection to make this a game. I just think it requires Iowa to be what they've been. Yeah, I think that's right. And I think we'll talk more about it, but I think there are things that Iowa does well that I think maybe aren't the best matchup of times for some of the stuff that Ohio State's defense is still working through specifically with the linebackers, right?
Mm-hmm.
This will be a big test for Ohio State's linebackers. One of it's like just tackling Caleb Johnson, but two, just like handling all of what Iowa throws at you with its rushing attack, and then the ability to kind of throw at the tight ends off of that. So it's not like I'm not like on upset alert necessarily for Ohio State, but I do think I understand why the thought coming into the year was just like Oregon. We got to get to that game. We'll figure out what Ohio State is. I don't think I agree with that. I actually think this Iowa game will tell us a fair amount about Ohio State.
And I am sure that's where Ryan Day is going to be. Like Ryan Day is going to talk a lot about how good Iowa is. What do you guess the line is?
17.5.
21.
Okay.
So that feels heavy and I'm not trying to give people flashbacks, but last time Iowa beat Ohio State, what did they do? They attacked the Ohio State linebackers. So whatever world we're in, it's not the Bill Davis world. So it's not the same thing, but good running back, good tight end, attack the Ohio State linebackers and play good defense. Like Ohio State fans know what Iowa's capable of in that. So again, it's not upset alert. It's respect your opponent week. And just understanding that they have gone from absolutely abysmally atrocious on offense to like average. And that is a huge step up for them. And so it's I mean, that's not even.
Yeah. No, you're right.
That's real. That's like, so like this is not the Brian Ferentz Iowa team. And that makes a difference for the Hawkeyes. So it'll be a fun week.
This is not Kings of the North, but I just want to mention it while I'm thinking about it. I was watching the Indiana Maryland game, and like from time to time they'll show Mike Loxley on the sideline, and Brian Ferentz is like standing right behind him with the headset on. It was like seeing a ghost. I got jump scared by Brian Ferentz. I was watching Indiana Maryland.
I mean, he's making coffee, right? Like he's an analyst, right?
He was not the players on the field. He seemed pretty heavily involved with whatever they were trying to do, calling plays.
I mean, it's one of those things. Again, Brian Ferentz probably should be an offensive line coach at a mid-tier Power 5 team.
Yeah,
he should not be the offensive coordinator for a team that is trying to win 10 games every year.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that he's like he shouldn't be unemployable. He was just out of his depth. So in Iowa's better that he's gone. Okay. Thanks to you guys for making Kings of Columbus Sunday sound off part of your Ohio State week. We will see you back here on Wednesday for Kings of Columbus. Make sure you're watching and listening to everything on the podcast feed all of this week. And of course, Kings of the North, Monday through Thursday, noon, live on YouTube. And if you haven't joined our post-game show, like we'll be talking a lot of Ohio State, Iowa on the post-game show next Saturday at 11 p.m. We have not talked a ton of Ohio State on that post-game show because Ohio State's just been beaten inferior opponents. But now it's go time. I mean, if Ohio State beats Iowa by 50, we will talk about how awesome of a win that was for Ohio State. And if it's a game, we'll talk about like, man, that was a game. So if you want some post-game stuff on Saturday from us, we're definitely going to give it to the Ohio State audience on Saturday, right?
We will. It would be a major part, really kind of like for the first time, a major part of the late night show on Kings of the North. One other thing, because you reminded me of it on the topic of this being a pretty big game this week. I apologize if I'm wrong, but I believe we're going to have a weekend kickoff show on Thursday night at the Fairway Columbus. I think 6 or 7 o'clock. We'll have more details about it like during the week, but like if it's a thing you wanted to come out to ever, I'm pretty sure we're going to do one this week for the Iowa game. So look forward to that.
And people can come see it live.
Yep. Come hang out. There's food, there's drink, there's ball talk. It's a good time.
Okay. All right. Thanks to you guys for joining us here on Kings of Columbus Sunday Sound Off. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of Columbus.